If everyone will please make your way to your seats. Today is Tuesday, November 18th, 2025 at 9:30 in the morning, Board of County Commission meeting here in Seminole County. I would ask that you check your cell phones and any electronic devices that you may have, and please silence those. We're going to start with the invocation by Mr. Shane Cahoot of Metro Life Church, and Commissioner Delary will lead us in the pledge. Please rise.
Thank you. Please join me in a moment of reverence. Sovereign God, we acknowledge that you are the giver of every good gift, that you bless people, that you are a provider, and you use things in your created order and use things in our culture and society to bless people, and local governance is one, which means that this room and this meeting is a fount. And I ask this morning that this fount would overflow with goodness, grace, mercy, compassion, justice, and righteousness into Seminole County, that real people would be blessed through the decisions in this room. We lift up our teachers to you right now. We thank you for them and the work that they're doing. We ask that you would help them flourish, not only in their calling and vocation, but in life. For the children in their care, and the children are being watched by child care workers and are at home with families right now, would you bless our children and keep them safe, and would they flourish? We lift up business owners and entrepreneurs and the work that they do in commerce and creating jobs and growing our economy. Would you bless them today, and would they flourish? And for those who work for them in hospitality and services and construction and maintenance, for our first responders, for law enforcement, ER nurses and doctors, ambulance drivers and firefighters, would the citizens of our cities flourish? And would you bless the commissioners and those who work in this room, and would they flourish and their families flourish? And would everyone in this room rightly feel the weight of the responsibility to govern well? Would the decisions and the leadership in this room not only lead in excellence in their work today, but excellence in their character? That everyone would be blessed. And I pray this in the name of your Son, Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you both very much. We sincerely appreciate Mr. Cahoot for being here today and lead us in prayer. And Commissioner Delary, thank you for the pledge. We're going to switch things up a little bit this morning with the blessing of my fellow commissioners. I'd like to move item number 4 from the consent agenda up to awards, presentations, and proclamations. If I don't hear any reason why we shouldn't do that, I'm going to go ahead and ask that we move that forward. So be it. This will be Commissioner Herr. If you'd be kind enough to read this item into the record, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are in the presence of royalty today. So I read the following resolution of the Seminole County Board of County Commissioners honoring the 103rd birthday of Queen Charlotte Taylor, who is here with us today to celebrate. Whereas Queen Charlotte Taylor was born on November 11th, 1922 in the Republic of Panama, and whereas Ms. Taylor immigrated to the United States in or about 1961, a very fine year I might add, residing first in Brooklyn, New York, before making her home in Queens, New York. And whereas Ms. Taylor worked diligently at New York Hospital for approximately 28 years, retiring in 1989. And whereas, following her retirement, Ms. Taylor relocated to Florida in 1995, first residing in Lake Mary and later moving to Sanford in 2004, where she was among the first 3 residents of the Cedar Hill subdivision. And whereas Ms. Taylor's strong work ethic led her to rejoin the workforce for several years as a private duty nurse, continuing her lifelong commitment to caring for others. And whereas Ms. Taylor has been a devoted woman of faith, worshiping as a member of Family Worship Center, Abundant Life Ministries Church, and Reality Community Church congregations she has outlived, yet she continues to worship and give thanks to God, whose presence transcends all walls. And whereas Ms. Taylor has also been an active member of the Sanford Senior Center, engaging in her community and fostering meaningful relationships with fellow residents. And whereas Ms. Taylor is the proud matriarch of a large and loving family, including 5 children, 14 grandchildren, 19 great-grandchildren, and 7 great-great-grandchildren. And whereas Ms. Taylor became a naturalized citizen of the United States and remains deeply grateful for the blessings of 103 years of life, love, family, and community. Whereas her life stands as a shining example of faith, perseverance, service, and grace, inspiring all who will have the privilege of knowing her. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of County Commissioners of Seminole County, Florida, that Queen Charlotte Taylor is hereby honored and celebrated on the occasion of her 103rd birthday with sincere appreciation for her lifelong contributions, her enduring faith, and her steadfast love of family and community. Adopted this 18th day of November, 2025.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed, like sign. Carries unanimous. Congratulations. Let's get a photo down in front of the dais.
So the phones are ringing off the hooks.
And she will,
Go with this conspiracy.
we have seen her over a year, 7 months ago, in Altamont. They said this makes it pretty good. So she's going to be there.
Hey, there's some mornings I get out of bed and I
After
feel
that, probably another 2 weeks. But
I mean, can you imagine 103 years, you've seen more accomplished in this world than any generation ever before.
well, I got Holly, my sister,
Amazing.
and my mom's house for a while. I'm taking care of that news.
All right, we appreciate everybody's patience. Isn't it amazing, 103 years old? God bless him. Wow. That generation has seen more accomplished in this world than any generation before and probably any generation after. Well, next we'll go to our County Investment Advisor Report, Mr. Scott McIntyre, who's here with us live today. Mr. McIntyre, welcome.
Good morning. Thank you. Here we go again, right? Okay. The Fed cut rates very recently. The big question is whether they're going to cut in December, and the market has kind of decided that they probably might not. It's sort of iffy, as opposed to a month ago when it was roughly 100% chance priced in. It's about 50 now, and the reason why is that the Fed has not seen economic data to substantiate whatever decisions they're making, and that's going to be here for a while. I think it's a coin flip in mid-December, but if it doesn't happen in December, it will likely happen in January, so it's just a question of timing. It's not a question of if, it's when. Obviously, the federal government shutdown is resolved. There's bad feelings all around, kind of let you know that this funding only goes through January 30th, and on January 31st, we potentially do it all again. And I think there's a reasonable chance that happens, God forbid, but somewhat likely. The economic data, I'm sorry, my eyesight is sort of deteriorating a little bit. I'm going to have to bring my other glasses next time. But the government-sourced economic data is not available. We're looking at private-sourced data. It's not clear that the investors are trusting that data that they haven't been used to seeing yet. So we're not going to get a CPI report for the month of October. It wasn't produced. Chances are November will be late or not produced at all. September employment will actually come out on Thursday, but it's going to be it's 48 days late, so I'm not sure how useful that is. And then when we roll into October employment, the idea is we may see the payroll numbers, but we won't see the unemployment rate. So again, from the standpoint of the Fed, who's trying to gauge the data so they can determine whether or not they cut rates, they're just not seeing enough right now. But I will tell you the private sector job data seems to be really, really weak, and the more we hear and the more we read, the more it appears that AI is having a significant, quick effect on white-collar jobs at the front end. Seen that, we talked about it before, but a 7% unemployment rate for recent grads coming out in the technology area, which is about double what it was a year before. Very, very troubling. Inflation is warm. It's not hot. That's probably fine. And to be honest with you, and this is right off the top of my head, regardless of when the Fed cuts, I don't think that rate cut would affect inflation or the job market, because in theory, when you cut interest rates, you stimulate growth by making borrowing cheaper. There's plenty of borrowing and plenty of investment going on right now. So I think that, as usual, we're just going to have to wait and see what happens. But this is a very unusual time. I know I've used that phrase before to the point that it's almost worn out, but we're having a lot of trouble understanding the current environment. This is the 2-year Treasury note yield. I'd like to just show it to you guys. This is over the course of the last year. So down, 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 actually moved up just a little bit recently, which is fine because there hasn't been a whole lot of investing done in the last couple months just because you've been spending the money. This is, as I usually show you, the interest rates that are available over the course of the last several times we've been here. So up a little bit since the last time we've been here. I feel like it's still a good time to invest longer to the extent that cash flows allow, simply because I do think that ultimately rates will be lower. Again, it's just a question of timing more than anything else. So upcoming maturities, and I'll mention that there are maturities coming up in November, then there's a gap in December for maturities, and a gap in January, and a gap in February. And the reason why is that your tax money's coming in. So we intentionally did not position maturities to mature at the time when we'd have to make decisions about where we'd invest that tax money. But a couple are coming off. Recent transactions, 2 Palm reinvestments that we had talked about before at what I feel like are fairly reasonable levels. Those were positioned to mature when you need the maturities for expense reasons. The CD, the big CD that matured, was rolled over. What I felt like was a really favorable rate out 3 years, so locking in a 385 with Centennial, which is where that came from. All the other banks on that competitive bid situation were nowhere near that 385, and it's about 35 basis points above where treasuries were in that spot at the time. So recommended purchases, we are recommending, for heaven's sakes, I'm really having trouble here.
I have an extra pair.
Well, it's long distance, which I used to have just fine, but so looking at 10 million and 10 million out in the 2 and the 3 year sector at roughly today, probably in the neighborhood of 360. Those are specifically positioned to fortify your expected cash flow, which I became a lot more intimately aware of this summer when I looked at what your spending patterns were. And then same thing with that $20 million Palm, which is basically reinvestment. It's going to the summer months next year when you'll be needing the money. So it's fairly simple. And again, just to let you know, the next thing we're going to be concentrating on is when your property taxes come in. So that's going to be pretty quick, and we're going to have to make some decisions there. But for right now, it's fairly easy. It's a rollover, 2 $10 million investments going out. Basically, this is diversifying your maturity ladder more than anything else. So again, the 2 year right now is at right about 360. The 3 year is right about 360. The portfolio at the end of October was yielding 428. After what we're doing here in November, I estimate it's going to be right around just under 420. Again, you don't have maturities coming off for a while, so the impact is I would expect the yield will be fairly similar to where it's been for the next month or two. So, you got to help me here. Okay. So I think we need a motion.
So I will look to the
Mr.
board
Chairman.
for action.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to implement recommendations of our financial advisor based on a report submitted today, and recommend the clerk implement the said board's recommendations.
Motion second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed, like sign. Seeing none, carries unanimous. My biggest takeaway from all that was the lack of a CPI being published and how troubling that's going to be to the state's CFO and his calculations.
I did read that.
I don't know what he's going to do.
Yeah, there's.
Wow.
And if it makes you feel any better about what's happening in Florida with all the rhetoric and things going around, we're experiencing the same
Of
thing
course.
in my state as well. We seem to be taking a
The
lead
great
from
state of
your
Texas.
governor.
That's right.
Yes, indeed.
Good, thank you.
Thank you all. Have a good Thanksgiving.
Travel safe.
Appreciate it. Have a good holiday. All right, now we will go to our consent agenda, and if anyone is here that desires to speak on the consent agenda, please make sure you fill out a form in the lobby, bring it up to Ms. Dominique, the clerk. It's a yellow form. She'll have that, and we'll call you up as the time is appropriate. Please put the item in which you desire to speak on so that we make sure that you're speaking at the right time. I will go to the county attorney for the rules of engagement of public participation. Ms. LaTorre.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Florida law provides that members of the public shall be given a reasonable opportunity to be heard on propositions before the Board of County Commissioners, except when the board is acting in emergency or ministerial matters or conducting a meeting exempt from the requirements of the Sunshine Law. Individuals shall be permitted 3 minutes each for public comment, or 6 minutes when the individual is an official representative of a formal association or group. The chairman may modify the maximum time for public comment at his sole discretion when appropriate. Public comments on quasi-judicial or other public hearing items will occur during the board's consideration of those items this afternoon. Public comments on pending procurement matters or on non-agenda items shall not be permitted at this time. Members of the public desiring to make public comment must fill out a speaker form and present the form to staff, and forms are available in the lobby. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Latour. Mr. County Manager, do you have any revisions, changes on your consent agenda, items 5 through 26?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Just two items. I'd like to pull item number 11, and I'll be bringing that back to the board at our next meeting. And just a clarification on item number 17, which is the Criminal Justice Center. I handed out before the meeting started the value engineering items. This was not in the backup in the packet, so I just wanted to make sure it was a part of the record. And we were joined by Chief Judge Chase here. She's in the audience, and I just wanted to thank her. She's really worked hard with our staff to value engineering this project to get this under budget. So I just wanted to ensure that this was a part of the record.
Yeah, good stuff. Good work. We appreciate the judiciary working with us hand in hand on behalf of the taxpayers. This is a huge savings, so thank you all very much. We appreciate it. All right, I will go to the board. Does a board member have any item they desire to pull for separate consideration? Commissioner DeLaurie?
Mr. Chairman, if there's no objections, I'd like to make a motion to approve 2 through 26, excluding 11, and including the item that the county manager talked about putting into the item number 17.
The addition to 17?
Correct.
And less item 4, which we've already dealt with?
Yeah, less 4 as well.
Okay. Have a motion?
Second.
A second?
Mr. Chairman,
Does anybody else have anything to be pulled?
I was just wondering about
Okay, well,
public.
yeah, I'm going there now. Nothing else? Commissioner Lockhart?
No, sir.
All right. Let's go for public input. Do we have any folks from the public that wish to speak on these items?
No, sir.
No public input. We will close public input and go back to board action. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. Thank you all very much. Next item up is our work sessions. This will be item number 27, Parks and Recreation update, Mr. Rick Durr. We'll give you a moment to set up Mr. Durr while folks are leaving the chambers. Thank you all for being here today.
Inconsistency.
We all set? Good to go?
Yes, sir.
All right. For the record, Rick Durr, Parks and Recreation Department Director. I apologize, woke up this morning a little bit under the weather, so I figure that will keep me one focused to get to the end so I can go lay down, or if I pass out, then it'll quickly come to an end, and I think everybody's a winner at that point. So with that being said, the last time we were before you to talk about, just in general, the department and what we've been working on. It's been since February of last year. So there's a lot of things that we wanted to update you on. We'll do a brief department overview as well as some highlights in our operations, some key initiatives, and give you an update on some of those, as well as what our future opportunities and challenges look like moving forward. For those that wonder who is within Parks and Recreation, we've got folks from Extension Services, our Library Services, our Recreation Division, Trails and Parks, and those particular folks. So Bill Pandos is the division manager. Wave to everybody. There you go. Of our Trails and Parks Division, Mandy Salazar, in charge of Recreation, Christine Patton, libraries, and Shane Michael in UF IFA services. Our administration office, Jacqueline, I like to refer to her as the boss. She continues to allow us to operate within budget and so forth. So I really appreciate the folks that, as part of that leadership team, that are here today and really continue to sing their praises. Number one is we did receive our national reaccreditation moving forward. And again, the CAPRA process holds us to 154 standards of excellence. We achieved a perfect score last year and were awarded that. And then just looking at the stats and figures, out of over 10,000 agencies across the United States, there's just barely over 200 that have this national accreditation. So we really appreciate the work of all of our staff who continue to work through that process. In addition to that, we were able to celebrate with you the Florida Library Association naming the Seminole County Library Library of the Year this year. And that's going against some of the biggest systems here in the state. So we again give our staff credit and the kudos for achieving that moving forward. But the bottom line with everything is we've got a very diverse group of public servants, over 200 individual souls throughout our department, who serve the public 7 days a week on a daily basis and offering everything from library services and early child care reading to classes on making your own and managing your own budgets and food. So we really appreciate all the work that they do, and we can't do any of these things without their incredible dedication. So I really laud our staff, and it continues to be an honor for me to work with them on a daily basis. So just by the numbers, our operations, again, I talked about being diverse. We're also diverse in locations. We have staff based at 17 locations throughout the county. A number of, as you see the list on the screen, different types of facilities that we maintain and staff, a lot of them 7 days a week throughout the county. And we maintain the paved trail system, the unpaved trail system, and all of our natural lands within our natural lands program going forward. All told, again, a very diverse and eclectic group of services that our folks deliver. This is our dashboard, if you will. It was a manual dashboard. At this particular time, we're moving towards, and I'll speak to this in just a moment, going to maybe a way to automate some of this. But we track all of this data every year. At the end of each fiscal year, we initiate what's called the Community Impact Report, and we make that available to the board, to staff, and to the public in general, so that we're able to count exactly the types of services they delivered and how many folks that we were able to serve throughout the course of the last fiscal year. So everything from, extension services doing almost 500 separate educational classes moving forward, to tracking in our recreation department, our partnership with tourism in delivering over $55 million worth of economic impact based on the events at our facilities. Our partnerships goes beyond that. It continues to be working with the cities and with the school district on a continuous basis to make sure that we don't have any necessarily duplication of services, and we continue to overlap and provide quality services throughout the year. We also have a lot of other folks throughout the county that we need to say thank you to, and to everything from our different volunteer groups and all the volunteers that we have working through Parks and Recreation to some of our nonprofits, and all the way down to a number of our advisory committees that this board appoints members to, and they're able to, again, provide and be a sounding board for us out in the public. So we really appreciate those partnerships throughout the course of the year. So it's been a busy last 5 years, if you will. This is just a highlight of some of the major initiatives that we had throughout that. We'll talk a little bit about some of those, finishing an ADA transition plan in parks and libraries, to actually creating the latest or the newest park system master plan, the library services master plan, which is the first in about 30 years, and an update to the trails master plan. Those master plans moving forward, while they take a lot of time and a lot of effort to put forward, help identify where our existing needs are, and then talk about implementation of strategies moving forward. So the library system master plan, for example, listed a number of items that we will focus on within this next decade, and we named a lot of those projects within the infrastructure sales tax, and we'll be continuing to work those moving forward. In the meantime, we've had a lot of things to celebrate and a lot of projects that were already underway and continue to move forward. So everything from the grand opening of the Kids Zone in our largest library branch, to continuing to work on the renovation of Building 302 to collect the carriages and put those on in a public space for the folks there to appreciate those at the museum. Our library services master plan, again, talked about a 5, 10, and 20-year horizon, and it prioritized the types of projects that we will continue to look at and move forward as we plan the future. Our trail system master plan, that was completed back in 2022, and the update to that, it highlighted a number of projects that we already had in production, as well as some needs that we had moving forward. And we've been happy to say that over about the last year and a half, utilizing both third-generation sales tax funds and looking forward to future projects in the fourth generation, such as finishing up the Sylvan Lake Park Trail Loop, the San Lando Park Trail Loop, just to name a few. We'll continue to work forward and continue to work with our partners at FDOT and in Metro Plan as we continue to plan the future of potentially a new regional trail moving through Seminole County. This is a map of some of the state's regional trail system, and as you see a number of them, if you can see right up underneath there, the green shaded area, that's us on the map. A number of these already move through our trail system, and we'll continue to see other folks plugging into our trails to make regional connections. One of the new initiatives, and this came back before you back in May, was a letter of support for what could be called the Lake to Lake Trail. We continue to work with folks at the state level, the Florida Trails Foundation, and our partners and neighbors next door to continue to move this idea forward and to have this recognized at the state level as a new regional trail. Why is that important to us in Seminole County? It immediately puts us eligible for Sun Trail dollars that we can then plug into and help offset some of our own costs as we continue to work on priorities within our system. Our park system master plan, as part of our reaccreditation process, was adopted in early 2024, and that's the last time we discussed this with you. We had a number of initiatives at that point. Number one is making sure that we're providing high quality parks and initiatives for all of our residents. And then some of that included making sure that we were targeting future areas for parks development where we identified geographic needs within our system, where folks in particular neighborhoods do not have easy access to green space or to recreation facilities. So we have those big bubbles that were on the screen as part of the Park System Master Plan, and that has helped us to identify a number of properties that this board has approved and moved forward, and we really appreciate that leadership in that regard. So where the property acquisition of the equestrian facility was to provide a space for us to eventually expand Sylvan Lake Park, that will deal with one of the items that we had in our master plan and identifying needs. We had the adoption of a new passive park at a previous maintained county stormwater facility with Lake Wildwood, and that was officially blessed by this board. The lavender parcels just next to Red Bug Lake Park will allow us to eventually, over time, expand that facility. And then last but not least, the entire Yarborough Ranch acquisition of working with this board, with the state of Florida on the acquisition of that through the Florida Forever program. That was a huge undertaking, and with your support, we were able to work with the state to bring that through fruition. The spin-off of all of that is that as the Yarboroughs were looking to divest themselves of certain properties, they then turned around and later on, we accepted a donation of 30 acres within the St. Johns River area, and then the last final 5 acres that we can add into the Lake Harney Wilderness area. And we really appreciate their donations in that regard. Some of the major initiatives that are moving forward as we speak, the indoor recreation complex, we brought before you the selection of Pizzuti, I believe it was the last meeting. We are working on finalizing their scope of services so that we can kick off this project much sooner than later. And we had a meeting with them on Friday just of last week to go ahead and complete their initial purchase order proposal. So that will be coming back to you much sooner than later as we move forward. Deer Run, we've had a number of stabilization projects that we've completed out on that property, and that included cleaning out the clubhouse. On the consent agenda today was approval for the first utilization of the MSBU dollars to rehab the clubhouse building as we had in the plan from the start, and make sure that we can move forward with whatever renovations that are needed so that that can be opened up for public use. At the Boomba Sports Complex, currently, we have a project underway that took years of planning and lots of savings in the tourism development tax piggy bank, putting those in reserve for the eventual replacement of the artificial turf at the sports complex. That project is well underway. It is currently under budget and ahead of schedule, so knock everything here. That will continue to meet on time. The deadline on this was to get us ready for January of 2026, and at this point, we're in really good shape. The other thing that happened that you are all knowledgeable of, and we like to be able to enjoy this, is to celebrate the fact that Newsweek magazine's Fans' Choice listed the Boomba Sports Complex as the #1 youth baseball destination in America this past year. And working with tourism, we've now begun to announce that to our parks visitors at that location. Overall, we've had a really good year in terms of the number of tournaments that we've had at our various locations throughout the county, to the tune of, again, $55 million worth of economic impact. Working with our tourism partners, this year we had the Florida State Athletic Association softball championships that were held at our facility at Boomba Soldiers Creek, and then we had the NCAA Division II tennis championships played right here in Seminole County earlier this year. So we continue to enjoy both a healthy backlog of tourism events as well as local and state championships moving forward. Wekiva Golf Club continues. We continue to do projects out at Wekiva. We've had a number of projects completed. You see on the list off to your left. Probably the single largest project that we had there was a complete system replacement on the irrigation system. Really hard to play golf and without any grass. So we had to make sure that that was being taken care of. That project was successfully completed, and I'll show you the rebound effect that had on the ability for us to hold additional rounds of golf. So, putting everything out on the table, in fiscal year 22-23, we had a quote-unquote normal year where we were looking at operationally a net income of just over $175,000. We knew that we would take it on the chin operationally because in order to do the irrigation system replacement, you can't have folks playing golf at the same time you're digging holes in the ground. So we saw obviously a decrease in the overall net income for that year. Wasn't actually as bad as we had predicted in terms of the worst case scenario. In the full calendar year since that replacement is done, you see the rebound of what we had. We've seen an increase in the round of golf rounds. We've seen an increase in the accolades that this property receives online. And then final numbers that came in for fiscal year 24-25 show us in a nice net income balance with the operation of that facility. Either way, if you're interested in playing a round of golf, you can go to Golf Now online, or you can go to the website address there on the screen and book your tee times now. And we continue, like I said, continue to get good props from the community and from the players there at that location. So what's in our near future aside from all those projects that are still in process? We'll be bringing back to you the guaranteed maximum price, or GMP, working with Collage, our contractors for the Rolling Hills GMP. As a matter of fact, this afternoon there will be a host of folks, staff from the county in parks, public works, and utilities at Collage's office, pouring through the numbers on that GMP to get that ready and bring back to you as quickly as we can. We've got more work coming on the Rosenwald property that continues, that we continue to work with our partners in facilities. WB Equestrian Center building itself, that's something that was discussed at your last meeting regarding the fourth generation sales tax projects. We'll have more refinements on what that plan looks like coming forward, as well as we'll continue forward with the MSBU expenditure on the clubhouse renovation at Deer Run. Our Seminole Moments this year is really important, and we've moved forward with a contract on this and hope to begin in June. Let me try it again, another J word, January. All right, breathe deep. At these particular facilities, and why this is important for us to move from the older kind of typical incandescent sports lighting to the more LED energy efficient fixtures, is the conservative estimate on the impact on our general fund once we complete this project funded through infrastructure sales tax, is we could see up to $145,000 savings just in our energy consumption bill across the board. Other major projects that we continue to have on tap and we will continue to move forward include renovations in neighborhood green space. We'll continue with library renovations and expansions and modernizations of our service delivery. And we'll continue to work at making sure that we're getting the biggest bang for your buck in our sports youth tourism market as we move forward. Technology and technology opportunities that we're looking at. The reason why I show you the GPS Field Painter is that is a robot paint machine that has cut down the amount of time that our staff has to spend by almost 90% of the time they spent just trying to line the fields by having this wonderful programmable robot that will put the lines down. We're now looking for ways that we can create efficiencies within our department of using both AI technology and being able to track the users of our property and move to that next generation of patron tracking, as I mentioned, and making sure that we are moving forward with the technology and the ability to identify efficiencies. And last but not least, we'll continue to work through the fourth generation infrastructure sales tax on all of those items at which we had picked out as needs within the community. We'll work on continuing to refine priorities for the department, and then we'll be bringing back those to you in the near future. So with that.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Durr. Any inquiries from the board? Commissioner Herr?
So, just 4 easy questions, I think. Are we keeping an eye on the Volusia County plans for their recreational tourism programs?
Yes, we are.
And is the plan to work collaboratively with them?
The short answer is yes, and we've got a great relationship with their parks department up there, and Tim Bailey and the director has done a fantastic job of us checking in with each other and continuing to get status updates. Yes.
Yeah, I think the opportunities for synergy are significant, given the proximity. Tea time pricing at Wekiva, how's that decided?
I'm turning around looking at the one person I did not introduce, which is our deputy director, Michael Wersing, who plays regularly at Wekiva. You want to talk about your experience on that?
Sure.
Come on up.
For the record, Michael Wersing, Deputy Director for Park and Recreation Department. So the part of the contract with Down to Earth is that they set the fees based on averages across the country. So they have the authority to basically raise them based on peak time. Obviously, we're coming into the peak time in January, February, March. Golf obviously drops in July and August when it gets hotter. So they set them there. They set the rates based on the average, and they're right around the average. I play as much as I can with my kids don't have sports, but they're right in the middle of the average there. They've been able to increase the fees based on the condition of the course and driving in. And again, as Rick mentioned, if you look at the Golf Now, it's an app. You can see the last probably couple of months, almost all the ratings have gone from 2 and 3 stars to 4 or 5, and they basically have pointed out the condition of the course. So they are set by the management company.
Okay. I'm going to assume they're set by the company with oversight by us, since we're making the investment in the increased
That is correct.
viability, and we're keeping an eye on that given inflation and given demand. 'Cause
Absolutely.
those prices look like they're barn burners to me. I don't
we-
golf, but I do know the prices of golf.
Yes, so we continue, so every month we receive a new report on the breakdown of the entire budget across the board. So yes, at least on a monthly basis, we're getting those reports and analyzing all of them, yeah.
Commissioner Herr, if I could
Sure,
chime
go
in on
ahead.
that.
Commissioner Lockhart?
I believe the same management company that manages Wekiva also manages the Mayfair Country Club. Those prices are very similar. So I would be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to the folks who are here from the city of Sanford. Mr. Losard and Mr. Utzi are both doing an incredible job with the Mayfair Country Club. I know it's not ours, but it's in my district, and it is almost literally in my backyard. And so I feel like I have to say they are doing a grand opening for the new Mayfair Country Club on December 6th from 2 to 4. So another wonderful space in our community that is seeing a huge increase in usage. So it'd be interesting to compare, since they're the same management company, how that is working.
4th Gen Midway Parks. Do we need anything in 4th Gen for Midway Parks to complete all of that?
The short answer will be yes. Right now, probably the next project up is the Midway Trail Loop around the large lake. Yep. Currently, we're working with one of our on-call contractors to give us a construction manager at risk proposal That is in process as we go so that they can marry up what we've committed to in design versus what we currently have in the budget so that we can then say, all right, here's the only piece that we need left in order to complete that. So that's in process as we speak.
Okay. And then my last comment is that I realize that the summer camp programs are at maximum capacity, and I would tell you that that's probably one of the single greatest things we can do for the community is figuring out how to help working parents deal with kids over the summer in a safe educational environment that's affordable. It is a huge family stressor, so probably needs some focus.
Absolutely. And one of the things that we were very thankful to be able to bring to you earlier this year is an expanded partnership with the school district on the use of the nature center at Spring Hammock. It's right there in the heart of the county. Right now, we're working on a staffing plan to exactly figure out how we can maybe expand and double our eco camp at breaks, and especially over the summer, and maximize that. So basically, we could, again, we're sold out within minutes every February when we post summer camp. But being able to find a way to both manage the cost and then be able to double the opportunity for folks in the county to attend our summer camps.
I can tell you that if you do the math, most parents spend more on summer camps than they do on college.
Absolutely.
And think about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can't get student loans.
Yeah, that's correct. That is correct.
Commissioner Constantine.
Thank you. Could you elaborate a little bit more about the libraries and the library system and our plans? A couple of years ago, maybe it's been even more, we had the report, and there were some real needs that were identified. And when we were talking about the Gen 4, we didn't really talk a lot about libraries and that. So could you give me some information about that?
Absolutely. So when the project list was being put together in terms of what could be on the fourth gen list, and then thankfully our voters voted to approve that, we took the recommendations that were in the master plan and moved those forward and said, based on the priorities that were established in that report, as you had mentioned, these would be the early projects out of the gate. One of those is both the expansion of our technology and being able to create remote kiosks in areas where you maybe they're a much further drive away from our existing libraries, and being able to have folks check those out. Our libraries have implemented that service, sort of the Dropbox service, at each of the 5 library branches. We were able to use dollars out of COVID, and that has really worked well for folks. And what this would do is allow us to then expand into a kiosk service in other areas of the county where they, again, have a much longer drive to reach. In terms of our actual library buildings, we've had a lot of work that's being done by facilities right now on deferred maintenance items, including the infrastructure at those libraries, also including the AC units. Those are on the master list of being able to diagnose and replace. I'm happy to say that those continue forward as we speak as well, so we continue to upgrade those facilities. But one of the things that the report did mention is we do have a lot of just physical needs at each of the 5 branches. One of them is space, especially was identified in the East Branch Library in Oviedo, and looking at a potential expansion to that. So we've got those projects identified, they're on the list for funding, and we'll continue to move those forward through the discussion as we go through and prioritize what the next decade of spending looks like.
Thank you.
Commissioner Lockhart.
My heart's always with Parks and Recreation, always.
Thank you.
Congratulations. It's incredible the amount of things that you accomplish with, quite frankly, not a whole lot of resources. So you continue to knock it out of the park time after time. It's incredibly impressive. Love the economic development ROI. I think we need to continue to talk about that, not just in this room, but regularly. I think it was one of the things that was most misunderstood and most misrepresented during budget time, of the amount of investments that we make into our parks and recreation, and keeping that going and making it top-notch and having it be the best in the country. The amount of return on that investment, we can't talk about that enough for our citizens to understand what a great return on their tax dollars. And So that's one thing. The other thing, it was funny, yesterday we did our master plan conversation at Seminole State. We adopted it, and the first thing that came to my mind is, oh, look, another master plan. And right? And so oftentimes they go on a shelf, and then when we're ready to redo a master plan, we look at it again in 4 years before the 5th year is up. And so I challenged our team at Seminole State and us as a board of trustees to keep it on our forefront in every decision we make. Every time a shiny, and I stole shiny object too. I said, we just tend to see these shiny objects and they look good, but we need to be confronted in a positive way every time we go to make a large capital investment, that what we are doing is tied back to the plan. And if we decide we need to change the plan, let's at least address the fact that we are pivoting away from the plan that we adopted and we said we wanted to do. So I would give ourselves that same challenge as we head into this new year. I think we've done, our team, our consultants, this board has done an amazing job of setting a path forward, and we need to try and stay the course. So thank you for all you do.
Thank you. And again, I personally appreciate the kudos, but I immediately try to kick them back to our staff. Again, I can't say enough about our staff and what an incredible privilege it is for me to work with them on a daily basis. That's a big reason why I come to work every day. So thank you to the staff. Yeah.
Commissioner Delory.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to continue to expound on what Commissioner Lockhart was talking about, not just on the economic side. And that is very important, so that the citizens do realize and understand the investments that we're making and how it not only benefits them, but their family, but the community. But one of the things that you talked about today was the accreditation, Rick. Accreditation not just we just don't hold ourselves accountable, you just don't hold the department accountable, but we hold it accountable through national standards. And I think that's very important to not only talk about, but to celebrate, because not all organizations do that. And to have an accreditation that we've now been reaccredited 3 times, that's not an easy feat. A lot of times people do get into this and they realize how difficult it is, so a lot of them don't go through it. And then when they do go through it, they do get accredited, a lot of times they don't re-accreditate because of the complexity of it and how it really keeps you focused on what's important. So it's important for us to thank not just you, but your entire staff. And as you just said here today, there's a lot of people behind you and a lot of people not here today that makes this happen. So please, on behalf of the board, thank them for their fine work. And every time that any one of us goes throughout the park system, as I know we all do, the attention to detail that each one of the staff people have to reaching the goals and the objectives and taking care of business is truly noted. You all do such a wonderful job, so thank you.
Thank you. I'll be sure to do so.
Yeah. That's it, Mr. Chairman.
Just to follow up on that, I'm most thankful for several things. Since the day I started here, my first budget session, there were millions of dollars of capital improvements that have been deferred in our parks and recreation. Those are assets that the taxpayer had already paid for. Money had been spent and then pretty much ignored because there was not funding there to do so. I applaud your folks for being able to find that money, get it programmed into the budgets, and get those taxpayers' dollars protected. It's one thing to spend the taxpayers' dollars, but once you've spent it, we have a maintenance obligation to protect those taxpayers' dollars. Great work in the last 5 years in doing that. I would also be remiss in not saying that we've watched our Parks and Recreation Department develop, and we've asked them to do a lot more than what a Parks and Recreation division actually does. I think folks would be surprised to understand some of the things that you're charged with caring for, like some of the roadway medians, the maintenance, the planning, the sprinkling or irrigation, and making sure those are maintained properly. But then we threw the Florida Forever program in your lap on the Yarborough Ranch that you've never done, and arguably nobody in the state's county has ever done. So great work on taking what we ask you to do and getting such a great outcome. for the citizens. So good work for you and all of your staff. It's wonderful to see the progression in the last 5-6 years. The question I have is, in your presentation, is it possible, because we have so many state-owned lands and trails within our area, can you give us a economic impact going forward of what those are bringing as well? Because a lot of the state lands, equestrians use those where they may not necessarily use the county's trails, but they're coming here, they're spending money, they're part of our community. It'd be nice to know what the economic impact, if we can gather that, as well as the amount of acres of state-owned land, as well as the amount of miles of state trails. And I realize some of those overlap. That is a good marketing tool for people that would come here. We're already, the Orlando MSA area is already the #1 sports tourism destination. And it's because of the things that you have done and this board is blessed to fund, and that economic impact that helps offset the tax burden on the citizens of this county at the end of the day, because it falls a lot on the commercial entities and net revenue that's generated. And I think it was Commissioner Lockhart that mentioned we must do a better job in explaining to the public the costs and the benefits of some of these sports complexes that we endeavor upon, so that they clearly do understand what the offset benefits are to them. So good work. Appreciate it very much. If there's no other questions, I'll go and see if there's any public comment. Anybody here from the public desire to speak on this item?
No, sir.
Thank you very much. Then we'll close public input and move to the next work session.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Just one
Sure.
follow-up on what you said. When you're doing that analysis, I think it's important to recognize that when you have the conservation and open space areas, that it benefits the valuation of the homes around it. So that is, and that was clear when we purchased the Rolling Hills and how much increased value those homes had. It has happened in other places. So if you're going to do that analysis, that I think is clearly an important part of that overall project.
Yep, agreed. And one other thing, if you could put in your presentation the next time, how much money is the golf course returning to the taxpayers on an annual basis? I'd be happy to.
$65,000
Last time
over
I
the last
looked,
3 years.
yeah, last time I looked, it was somewhere in the
Already done that.
$60K over the last several years. So, but that needs to be pointed out.
Absolutely.
We hear a lot of comments, well, you bought a golf course on the taxpayers' dollars. Well, it was ARPA money to begin with, number one. Number two, it's returning money to the taxpayers to offset some of that burden. So, good work. Thank you very much. So we'll move to the next presentation, which is a Seminole Forever, and this is Mr. Durr as well. Do you need a break, Mr. Durr?
I'm still standing here. So
Okay.
good. Yeah, thank you. Okay. Let me get reset here. Okay, so the outline of today's work session and update on the Seminole Forever program, we're going to give a little bit of summary on the program background so that the folks that are both here and watching on television, again, get a refresher as to the background of this program. We'll go through the 10 applications that have been scored. We'll talk about how they were scored and why they were scored the way they were, as well as a ranking. And then we'll talk about how we use not just Seminole Forever, but how we combine this tool in the toolbox with other tools that are there, whether it's Florida Forever, Florida Communities Trust grants, Land and Water Conservation Fund grants, and how we might be able to piece together a way forward on these applications. So again, just a brief overview. The actual ordinance for this program was approved in August of 2023. By the end of 2023, you all had appointed the Application Review Committee, and I will officially call them ARC as I move through the presentation, so that's an acronym again. Their task was to then move forward with creating a evaluation criteria based wholly on the adopted ordinance and some of the operations of, say, Florida Forever and how they approach things, so that we, again, weren't reinventing the wheel on some of this. And then we had our first nomination cycle for folks that had an interest in potentially selling or being part of the program that was extended from December to January of earlier this year. So as I've said, we had 9 applications coming from the public, plus 1 that we had added by the county for at least consideration as we move forward as to how this could be impacted. Each ARC member did conduct site visits to all of the properties, as well as staff. And just to let you know, the number of publicly advertised meetings that the ARC had held since January of last year is the number 20. They met 20 different times, and the last several of them being right here in the chambers, where we met with each of the applicants on their property as well, and they were able to participate in the scoring process. So first off, if we have members of the ARC here in the chambers, if you would sheepishly stand up and be recognized.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. The amount of work that was done working with the ARC and between our staff has been incredible to be a part of. We have dedicated volunteers on the ARC, and they've just been fantastic to work with, and really, really digging down into the weeds on these to make sure that everything that we can possibly think of is addressed as we move this program forward. So again, many thanks to our 7-member ARC committee. So the 10 applications that we have, I'm not going to go through every single one of them on here. I'm just showing you geographically speaking. We go from east to west, north to south. We've got some potentials in the urbanized area, if you will, or in the core population center. And we also have some applications from folks who own tracts of land that are within the rural boundary area. And then one is right on the line, literally right on the line, and that's the Buchol's property just northwest of Chuliota. So why is that important? Well, we're going to go through the scoring on this, and after much deliberation and working through the criteria, the ARC established a system of major categories that are written within our ordinance, and then assigning point values to those. And there was lots of discussion about how many points and so on and so forth, and looking at other similar types of grant programs throughout the state. And the ARC came up with consensus on a total of 50 points for each particular aspect of each application. Now, a couple that I want to highlight, and especially as we talk about this program in relation to the Florida Forever program and our experience with the Yarborough property, was taking a look at the established Florida Wildlife Corridor and the importance for that. And I don't want to say it's a simple thing to do, but hopefully we'll simplify that discussion with a map. And that's taking our map that we showed you, the location of all those properties, and then sort of underlaying the boundaries of the Florida Wildlife Corridor as they move through Seminole County. So, that being said, we've got 3 areas or 3 properties that are on the east side of the county that are within the Florida Wildlife Corridor, as was the Yarborough property. And we've got one, the Parker property, a little sliver property up on the St. Johns River, up in the western part, northwest part of the county. So to some degree, you go, well, check that box, great. What does that mean? What it means is that if we're looking for partnerships on these, it makes it much easier to be able to say that, yes, we're within the Florida Wildlife Corridor. And that's been a hot button issue and priority at funding at the state level for the last several years, and we'll look at maybe being able to take advantage of those for these applications. The other thing, and the comment regarding using the master plan and moving forward, one of the things that we did at the staff level was to say, all right, if we identified where those need areas are in terms of need for green space within both the urbanized area, do any of these check that box moving forward? I've superimposed those circles, those need areas on there, and we've got one particular property within this that fits. That was an opportunity identified by the county called the Lawler property up on the intersection of Orange and Oregon, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But again, being able to utilize that to say, do we have another aspect where we've got a potential property for sale within an established need area for passive park space? And in this case, we have one. So the ARC went through after multiple iterations and refined their scoring on each of the 10 properties. The ones highlighted at the top of the list are the ones that the ARC recommended and said, yep, we believe these are great candidates for funding for a Seminole Forever program, and then here's the point totals associated with those. The other ones that are still on the list, they'll still garner consideration as we move forward, but obviously those weren't part of the top 5 moving forward. So what do you do? Okay, great. So then it became we've got a ranking in process. We've got identified program needs, and we have some rough estimates in terms of what we think the property might cost. Again, these are just rough back of napkin, and in all cases, we just ask the question from each of the landowners, where do you think you are in terms of price, knowing that it can all change as this moves forward through due diligence. So the place we started was, what do we have in the budget right now? So in our fund, at Seminole Forever Fund, as non-allocated to any other project or any other transaction at this particular point, we have just over $10.7 million available at this time for allocation to moving the list forward. So what we did, working with the ARC and then at staff, it became again, going back to the idea that this is one tool in the toolbox. How can we make the biggest bang for the dollars in the investment that Seminole County will make potentially in these applications, and then what are the next steps in moving any of these forward? I'll say across the board with every one of these, at no part are we asking you right now that we want to go out and we want to spend all this money today, and we're asking you to do so. On the contrary, where we are in this timeline is we're at a junction at which we need to make some decisions on what the next steps are. The next steps will then, once we have consensus from the board on what those look like, we'll then talk about what the next steps on each of those applications are. Anytime we have to make a decision moving forward, if we move forward with due diligence, we're bringing that information back to you. If we're coming back with a recommendation to purchase a property, that's coming back to you for approval. So again, this is a critical time in the timeline of Seminole Forever to determine which ones will move forward with partnerships and then how we continue to manage this program going forward. So this particular chart tries to distill down some of the pertinent facts of each of the 5 properties that rank the highest on the ARC's list. We immediately start to go, okay, what fits within our budget? And then how do we manage these going forward? And the top 2 that are on here, High Oaks, which is almost 670 acres, and Lee Ranch, 360, we know those are bigger projects, bigger than we can take a bite out of our current budget. However, based on their characteristics, based on their location, based on their proximity to and within the Florida Wildlife Corridor, we think flat out these are 2 great opportunities to move forward for a Florida Forever application. So far, and to update this, the High Oaks owners moved forward with their own Florida Forever application. And on Friday of last week, we were contacted by the state and said, when would you like to give us an update on where you all are at on this particular property? So that is already moving forward with the owners, and that we will then get back with the state and say, based on the direction given by the board, how involved do we want to be in that moving forward? The Lee Ranch project, that one is a good Florida Forever application. We've had discussions with that, with the representation of the landowners. It's adjacent to one of the state forests in the just outside of Chuliota, and would make kind of a great parallel acquisition. But in terms of management, it makes a lot of sense for the state to pick that up. But again, we're not going to know that until we're able to engage with them formally on these applications moving forward. The Bucolts, which is the 3rd on the list, that is the one that's right on the line, right on 419 in South Oviedo. We've looked at that. Again, each one of these properties were visited and analyzed by staff as well as a great opportunity, as a future investment in both passive recreation as well as the preservation of natural green space right there on the border of the rural boundary line in South Oviedo. D'Arcos is a wonderful 200 acres of Lake Monroe property just east of downtown Sanford. Directly across the channel where this sits on the St. Johns is another project that is currently managed by the St. Johns River Water Management District. If we decide to move this forward to the next step, we would engage with them and say, are you interested? Should we are able to purchase this property in maybe a partnership or having them manage those lands in cooperation with their property across the channel from this one. And then the last one on the list, Lessard, it's 80 acres directly adjacent to Mullet Lake Park. It is within the floodplain. We've got not just opportunities for a land and water conservation grant, as with the completion of the Spring Hammock project, we open up another slot. You can only have 2 active applications in, so we've got a spot for that one. And then we recently discovered that we could also engage the Florida Communities Trust for purchase based on the characteristics of that property. So at this point, what we tried to do is give you an estimate based on making sure that we've got dollars to do the due diligence, so whether it's survey, appraisal, you name it, all the steps that we need to move any of these forward, that we've accounted for that in moving forward with the top 5 on this list. I'm going to quickly jump to the bottom 5 on this list. There are 2 opportunities that we think, both of which provide some interesting opportunities for the county. The first one that was ranked on this one was the Parker property. It's a small piece of land right on the St. Johns River. We met, once we went through this application and analyzed it, we met with Public Works, and it's right on the Lockhart Canal. It makes a lot of sense for a future stormwater project and bringing that into their stormwater management system. So we would look at maybe taking advantage of other funding to potentially purchase that property moving forward. And then again, it would need to go through due diligence no matter what. The other one is the Lawler piece. That one came up while the county was looking at having to purchase frontage for the Orange Avenue project. We looked at needing to then go through the eminent domain. At that point, the property owners who had been operating a nursery on the property had closed down. It was a family business, and they're now willing to sell the entire property for what it would probably cost us less than to go through eminent domain. Again, it's an opportunity. Whether or not it's right for Florida Forever funding, or Seminole Forever funding, or another pot, that would be a good one to have, especially since it helps check that box that says we've got a lack of green space in this particular area, and it could become a park in the near future or the distant future, however it falls out. So those were the 10 on the list. We then said, all right, let's just play this forward and show you how this will work going forward out of the 10.7. Each time we're going to bring back the next step on any of these properties, we'll do exactly what it is we were talking about with our master plan. Give you an update. How does this fit into the program? Where are we financially with the program? Are we putting away potential maintenance dollars that are needed for any of these applications going forward that we need to commit to based upon the criteria of those programs? So making sure that we're able to then go ahead and update a budget for you so that you can continue to see how we're managing that fund and that we continue to plan for the future and making sure we have dollars in there for management purposes. So today, the idea was to go through, here's where we're at with the entire program. What we're asking for in terms of the next steps is being able to take at least those 7 that we had highlighted on the list and moving those forward to the next step, whether they're grant applications or regardless, we'll take them through due diligence. Directing staff to then start to look at those through the due diligence process. And then, as I had mentioned, any time that we're bringing back the next step on any of these, we will come back to the board to give you an update on both the overall program as well as what the commitment is on each of these properties moving forward. So at this point, we're also basically stating we have plenty of projects in the hopper on this one. We're not in a rush to ask for more at this moment. But should we're able to successfully bring a number of these projects forward, however many of them that there are, and where the board is able to decide on making those initiatives, we'll then potentially look at opening up a new round in late 2026. But again, that's up for decision at a future date. So at this time, that's exactly what it is we're asking the board for, and we'd like to move forward with this. So thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll go to the board. I first want to take an opportunity on behalf of the board to thank all the members of the ARC committee that have taken their passionate time on behalf of the citizens of this county and given your valuable input to making this much more streamlined. I can tell you if it came to us all 5 to beat this down and figure out which one was best, we'd be here for probably years. So thank you all very much. We sincerely appreciate it. All right, I'll go to board. Questions? Commissioner Constantine.
This isn't a question. Mr. Durr and I discussed this at length, and also getting periodic reports from the ARC committee as they went through their process. I just want to reiterate what you just said, Commissioner Zimbauer. This is probably the most organized, focused, and hardworking committee we have had in a long time. They have done a tremendous job, and bringing these 10 and doing the entire analysis and the point system and everything else, I'm just very proud of every single one of them. And this is so much easier to, work through than, as you said, if we ever tried to do it. I don't even want to think of what would happen there. The recommendation, I think, is quite reasonable and acceptable and the right way to move forward. I do believe that the first two, obviously, we know we can't even take a huge bite of those apples, and that to work and get involved with Florida Forever Project, especially that they're in the corridor, makes so much sense. The next two, obviously, are, as you said, are very much involved with as part of the Seminole Forever acquisition. I think, also, I have heard from others in discussion, the number 5, or the Lessard, that also has a lot of Seminole Forever acquisition opportunities, and have heard not only from them but from others about how they would be, if they were moved forward, how they would be willing to really negotiate. And one of the things in the Florida Forever, or the Seminole Forever ordinance, is that preference can be given to those that will be giving at less than appraised value. So I think that's wonderful, because that's also something. The next two, the Parker and the Lawler, I think are more in line with a Gen 4 potential, and also stormwater funds, although I think that maybe there is a mix that could be done, especially in the Lawler, the mix between that. And so I'm not going to make a motion right now, because I believe that maybe others would have something to say, but I think the recommendation that has come before us today, in that I'm more than willing to make a motion and move forward with it.
Commissioner Delory?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to expound a little bit on your comments, as well as Commissioner Constantine's comments about the ARC Committee. You all did a phenomenal job. I know you all spent many hours. How many hours, I can't even imagine, because I've heard from several of you as well. And the fact that you've been so dedicated through this whole process says a lot about you all. So, and also says that we picked the right people, so thank you. You've done a phenomenal job, and as the chairman said, it would have taken us at least a year, if not more, and I don't think would have gotten this far. But on your recommendations, Rick, and the recommendation from the committee, I totally support all 7 of them. I think that is the next step, and we'll see who's going to be the partners and where it's going to shake out. But I look forward to continue getting your updates, as we always do. And I think you're going in the right direction. I think the committee's making the right decisions and working very hard to do all this. I think the 7 that you're recommending to move forward and to continue to figure out where they stand, I think it's a natural step. So thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Herr?
I want to just confirm what 7 we're talking about.
So the top 5, as recommended by the ARC, this is that list of the top 5. So High Oaks, Lee Ranch, Buchholz, D'Arcos, and Lessard. And then below that line on the list were the Parker and the Lawler properties for consideration for other means, let's put it that way.
That's with my understanding as well.
Yeah.
So if you go back to the first 5, I just want to point out that there's one property on there that's 200 acres for $500,000. It's $2.45 an acre. And we're seeking a partnership with St. John's Water Management District for management. I think that one needs to be prioritized just based on price. We would absolutely be horrified if we lost that opportunity. So Rick and I talked about this during briefing, but it's significant, it's waterfront, et cetera. I do agree with the recommendations And I think that at some point, we're going to be stretched because we're running a race based on timing and answers that are going to be coming back to the board. So I think this is the first step in what's going to become a more difficult process in terms of decision-making. I can't possibly estimate how difficult the process was for the committee to get it to this level, and thank God we have you, let me just say that. And so thank you for all that you did. So as we're going through this, I think there's got to be a timing of how this works and a prioritization in terms of how this works so that we make sure that we're not losing out on unbelievable opportunities for the potential on opportunities that we may or may not be able to execute. That's my 2 cents worth.
Very good.
Commissioner Lockhart.
Reiterate a tremendous amount of gratitude to the committee. I love that we learned some great lessons through the Yarborough process about how to leverage funds, because not every piece of property that is being preserved in Seminole County or could be preserved in Seminole County has to be purchased by Seminole County. Because as we've learned, once we buy it, it's ours to maintain, and that cost is what is overwhelming to do it correctly. So partnerships with the state and other state agencies, I think, are critical. So congratulations on figuring out how to best leverage those. I think it's a great recommendation. I'm excited to see how things flesh out moving forward. I will, as the one, I think I might be the one commissioner that has basically the urban core. I don't have any conservation east or west or north in my district. I appreciate greatly the fact that the committee recognized that the Seminole Forever ordinance was specifically written so that people who live in the urban areas of the county can access open land and green space, because we have a lot of preserved property on the east and the west and the north. So,
And we welcome folks from your district to come out and visit anytime.
and they do. A lot of them do. And thanks to our trail system, they can do that very easily. But, you pack up 3 kids in strollers and you take a hike out to the Geneva Wilderness area, that's a plan. You have to plan to do that. If I want to walk a couple miles down a trail with my kids and my dog to get to some open space in a park, that's an entirely different activity. So we need to have both. I think this county has done a wonderful job of planning for both, and I'm glad that we're continuing to do that.
I will tell you that I rank them slightly different, but there's some outstanding information which we may or may not have at this point. I don't disagree with the list in its entirety. What conversations have been had, if any, with Orange County about what's happening with the adjacent property known as the Rybolt Ranch that backs up to the High Oaks? And there was discussion that they were possibly going to seek to purchase that property from the developers. They're in court right now over development rights. Of course, the state with Senate Bill 180 has put everything on hold with their voter-approved initiative of their rural boundary. What conversations at all have been had? Do we know anything about their plans moving forward with that adjacent property?
We know a little, but part of this is we need to get what's the latest update? And we'll be happy to do so with speaking with them.
And it was spoken about briefly that the High Oaks has already started the Florida Forever program. How far along are they, and is that to mean you're looking to us to do the due diligence financing portion of that, or are they already started down that road?
So the application went in just last month in October.
Okay.
So it's right at the beginning. Right now what we're saying is we'll put away dollars for whatever due diligence that we need to help facilitate. And the information that we got from the state just on Friday alone says, hey, we'd like to get the presentation of the property so that our staff can now begin walking it through our process. So we're very, very early on in that.
Okay. On that property, when you guys get deeper into that, and I should have provided this to you earlier, some of the residents that live in and around and adjacent to that property have shared panther pictures. We have a mother and we have some cubs that are roaming around in that area, which makes sense in that corridor along the Econ River. But I would move, personally, I would move the Lassard to number 3 because it backs up to our county parks. Of course, you got to negotiate. The one I'm really struggling with is the Buckholes property. I really struggle with that. That property was the reason the boundary was put there is I stood in this chamber as a private citizen when the then chair, Carlton Henley, during the rural boundary discussion, having the discussion, they had to draw the boundary somewhere. And it was asked of the citizens, does this make sense? Does this work for you all? And we said, well, it really doesn't make a lot of sense because you got houses you're going to develop over here, you got houses you're going to develop over there. It's going to be sort of like an island sticking out, and that's exactly what it is. But that's where the boundary was drawn. Because it is surrounded with what's there, I don't know, at least my opinion is, it should not be ranked that high. I think your other properties, even some that are below the top 5, are more valuable for the intended purposes. But I'm happy to go with the list pending additional information. But I really would want to know what Orange County's plans are, or if they're talking any further about purchasing the Rybolt, which would back up to us, because that's always been the sore spot.
Sure.
You know, everything that slams up against the rural boundary. And we can't change, by example, on the Buckholes property, you've got density that backs up to it. It's just what's happened because there was never a transition contemplated during the referendum on how that would be handled. And that property's got a fair amount of wet ground on it as well. So that's my 2 cents worth. Good job. Looking forward to further information to help us make those final decisions.
Fantastic. So we'll be happy to get with Orange County. And then with Buckholes, and this goes really for all of these as we move them forward, a big piece of this is going to say, and going to be when we come back to you, is here's what we envision this property could be and how it could be part of the system.
Sure.
So part of trying to answer that question is, all right, what is this potential public use at this location? Then we'll be able to flesh that out as well as we move forward. Yeah.
Because you got Lake Mills Park that's literally 3 blocks away.
Yeah.
Where you have the recreation ability and capability. But I would point out that earlier in this presentation, those parcels that you're looking for other recreational opportunities, I would only say, even though it's agreed that a great deal of the green space is in the eastern part of the county, there's a couple reasons for that. One, the voters voted for it. Number 2, there's a great deal of wetland. And to the point of waterfront property, I would tell you that property is water flooded the majority of the time.
Yes.
I don't even know that you could put a single house on it. But that said, if you look at your maps that you've given on this presentation and previous, I would just say there is 0 playground equipment for my children in Geneva. 0.
That is correct.
None. They can only go, they can't ride their ATVs in the public parks. They can't run their ATVs on the county parks. So they have their limitations that some of the urban core children have the ability to enjoy. So I know it's a whole different conversation, but I'd like to have some conversation of how we plug in, because we got a lot of young families that are continuing to come to the Geneva area now. So,
Sure.
What it's worth. Mr. Lockhart.
We all make choices where we live. Playgrounds are important. You buy near a playground. If you want to keep a horse in your backyard, you buy in Geneva. Like, everything's trade-off in life. But I understand the comments. One clarification on the ranking. Are these ranked?
They're scored. So in terms of the ranking, it's quite simply just going from high to low. One thing that we made certain on as we proceeded to develop the ranking criteria is a reflection of what our experience was in Florida Forever. So we put together the Yarborough application, for example. Their ARC did their own ranking. and it was probably in the bottom third of their list, and it was a really long list, so that's where it ended up. However, where that comes into play is, does it meet the criteria or does it not? And then the next step, which is the step we're in right now, then says, all right, which of these are ready to go? And that's why Yarborough was able to go quickly, because we had done a lot of the legwork up front that their staff was going to need to get to, and we provided that to them. So we look at this list as saying this is what the score was, but essentially you could look at any of the 10 and say, where does this fit within our program, and who's ready to go and who's not, and so on and so forth. So it will help as a guideline to get us this far. The next steps, however, will determine how quickly something gets. So if you want to call that a priority, it's a different
Okay.
conversation.
I just wanted to make sure, because the way that it felt like it was presented to us were this was the ranking, and these are the top 5 we're presenting to move forward. Not that the rankings no longer mattered, because that's what got them there, but they are not being presented to us by the committee in rank order of priority for our process moving forward.
Just by the scoring. So the
Okay.
actual process will start to shake that out as to which ones are ready to go sooner than later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, fabulous. Thank you.
I think to sum it up, don't put words in your mouth, this is the scoring at this juncture
That
of
is
the
correct.
process.
Yes.
Next process, it could move,
That's
the top one could move to the bottom one could move halfway, vice versa.
That is correct.
Got it.
Yes.
Commissioner Constantine?
Well, again, I'm ready to make a motion, but Commissioner, I just have to comment that your children are too old to be playing on.
But I have, but
I know, I knew what it was.
I have 2 grandchildren.
I bet they have a grandfather that would build them a little jungle gym.
Yeah,
That's what I was
a
thinking.
little tree house, a lot of open space out there. Okay, again, thank you all very much. And I see a lot of the potential sellers out there, so it's good to see you all here too. I will move the recommendation of the Director of Parks and Recreation, and that we continue to move forward in doing some analysis of the 7 that have already, the High Acres, Lee Ranch, Buckholz, D. Arcos, is that how you say it? D.
Close enough.
Arcos.
D. Arcos, yeah.
Lessard, Parker, and Lawler, realizing that some of them, especially top 2, were already involved with, the Florida Forever, and the bottom 2, with Gen 4 and the others in some form or capacity. I don't want to put.
Commissioner, I'll tell you what.
You're putting that all in your motion.
I know, I'm going to put it all. Okay, I'm just saying continue forward.
Okay, wait a minute.
Drop the other stuff. That was a comment more than a
I'll give you a few moments to perfect that motion.
Move forward with
wait,
7
wait, wait.
recommendations to do more analysis.
Okay, is there any public that desires to comment on this work session?
No, sir.
Okay, we'll close public input. All right.
Try to get too
Perfect your motion, sir.
Okay.
Is that
Then we
possible?
move forward. Come on, Bob.
Yes,
Don't
it
do
is,
that. Move forward with the 7 recommendations to, continue the analysis and bring back recommendations.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed, like sign? Pass unanimously.
Thank you very much.
You have
And
your
if I
direction.
may, just for one moment, and I really apologize for not having done this because she's not here in the room, is acknowledging our special projects managers, Sherry Williams, who has worked tirelessly with the ARC and the applicants and continues to do so. She would have been here until I got a emergency text this morning that there is a family medical emergency that she is tending to with her husband. All will be well. I believe he might be in surgery right now, but that being said, so our best wishes to her, but quite honestly, we would not have been able to get this far without her tireless work on this project, so thank you.
And a good
Sherry's
person to
awesome.
have that knows this county
Send her our thanks.
probably as good as anybody.
Absolutely.
So, good. Well, thank you very much. You've got your direction.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. That concludes our morning session. Is there anybody else has anything else for the good of the order? County manager, county attorney, fellow commissioners? All good. We shall be in recess to 1:30.